This video was brought to you in part by the supporters of the AMTV Patreon. Thank you. In late 2020, it was announced that a brand new 5-part drama, titled It's a Sin, would be debuting on Channel 4 in January of 2021. The show would be written by Russell T Davies, a man who has had many success stories in television. From the ground he broke with Queer as Folk, to his revival of Doctor Who, The Apocalyptic Years and Years, and even his previous Channel 4 contributions, Cucumber and its sister shows Banana and Tofu. This is a man who has defined modern British television for the last 20 years, and It's a Sin promised to deliver more of the same quality, reality, and impact that we have come to associate with Russell's work. With the new show set in the 1980s, Channel 4 not only went all out in terms of promoting it, but on the day of Episode 1's transmission, the 22nd of January 2021, the entire channel would undergo a temporary rebrand, harking back to its beginnings back in the early 1980s. A classic text-only menu, a primitive clock, RP accents, and even a trailer for It's a Sin, stylized as if it were airing back in the 80s, right down to the 4:3 aspect ratio, the VHS effect, and slightly fuzzy audio, the attention to detail is abundantly clear. But of course, this one-day rebrand would also extend to Channel 4's Idents, with many iconic sequences from the 80s being pulled back into service. So let's have a look at what they presented us, starting with the bona fide classic, fourcore.
You're watching Channel 4. Tonight, from acclaimed screenwriter and producer Russell T Davies, comes Channel 4's new drama It's a Sin at 9, where we go back to the 1980s. And we're there now, at the Cheers Bar.
The classics always shine through. This is a wonderful adaptation of the quintessential Channel 4 ident. Back in 1982, when this motif debuted, the use of computer technology to animate these blocks was seen as new, exciting, and cutting edge. Nearly 40 years later, it does look a bit basic, but even after all that time, there's something exciting seeing these blocks whiz around the screen, the fourcore theme blaring away before they all reform to create the instantly recognisable Channel 4 logo, one that hasn't changed since its inception. It's fantastic to see this classic sequence presented also in HD, with some very minor tweaks and updates to give it a little bit of extra flair for 2021. For one thing, if you look, the camera slowly zooms in throughout the whole sequence. This makes sense, as even the most common of TVs now are a lot bigger in screen size than those of the 80s. Secondly, the logo gets a little flash of light every now and then, another small tweak to perhaps make it seem more alive and vibrant, rather than just remaining static and unchanging when the 4 itself is formed. But in a way, I'm glad they didn't mess with the tried and tested formula of this sequence. It worked back in the day for a reason, and I would argue that the same appeal still works wonderfully here, nearly 4 decades on. Now then, let's trundle along and see what other retro treats we were given. Originally airing in 1987, I present to you Abstract.
A very good morning to you. You're watching Channel 4. Today is a special day as we look forward to our brand new drama, It's a Sin, at 9 o'clock tonight. But for now, here's Countdown.
This is old school Channel 4 quirkiness. Whilst there are many channels today that show weird and eccentric programming, it's easy to forget that back in the days of 4-channel television, that Channel 4 did indeed stand out from the old ways of the BBC and ITV. They thrived on being different, and the more elaborate and experimental you could get, the better. This ident, I believe, encapsulates that mindset. Everything from the use of classical music, to seeing these odd bits of material swing together to form the 4 logo. That art installation aspect is something I couldn't have imagined seeing on the BBC or ITV at that time, and the way in which these materials have been picked has been thought out and cleverly envisioned. Oddly, the whole sequence, presentation, music, etc. reminds me of a film clip from the 1960s. I'm not sure if that was what the designers were originally going for back in the 80s, but there's something about how vibrant the colours are, mixed in with the graininess of the background and the film, that makes it feel like it could slot into that era. But from something that reminds me of the 60s, our next ident is quite firmly from the 1980s. Originally airing in 1986, I present Videohead. God, I'm sure this gave someone nightmares. To be fair to Channel 4, out of all of their classic idents to bring back to show off to a modern audience, this is the most apt pick if you ask me. Videohead is very much of its time. The limited CG, the simple design of the head itself, the whole idea of something coming out of your TV to interact with you, that concept was so rampant in the 1980s. In terms of design, it's interesting how it was one of the few idents back then where the 4 logo wasn't the primary focus. It's very much the head that emerges from the screen, the 4 flashing by across it before the head retreats, and we're treated to a nice eerie image of a static TV. The whole sequence actually has the air of a horror film to it. The flashing eyes, even the music is a very low, somber drone. It's like the aim was to scare people. But whether it was or not, despite it being a bit dated now, it's a wonderful example of how much Channel 4 was willing to push the technological boundaries of the day when it came to their idents and promos. Let's move away from the horror to something a bit calmer and more relaxing. So sit back, travel back to 1985, and let's listen to some rain.
And something to tempt you for your Friday night, make your appointment for Channel 4's new 1980s drama It's a Sin at 9 o'clock. But right now, come dine with me.
There's something so appealing about soothing synthy tracks, isn't there? This, like Fourscore, is another example of how Channel 4 could go for a simple concept, but pull it off beautifully. There really isn't that much to it. An initial raindrop, followed by an absolute downpour, the bright colours of the 4 logo illuminated and reacting to the rampant weather. I think this is one where the music is the key to enhancing it. Despite it very obviously being one of the same stock synthesizers that every TV company had in the cupboard back then, the tones complement the visuals exceptionally. Swap it out with any other arrangement and yeah, sure, it would work to a degree, but this just cements the mood and style for me. The concept itself is so adaptable that if Channel 4 debuted this as a brand new original ident for 2021, unless you knew it from the 80s, I know I would believe them if they said it was new. With Videohead, it was the visuals that gave away its origin, but for Rain, the music is absolutely the calling card. Our next ident also has a very recognisable 80s sound, but we move away from easy listening to a track that definitely is inspired by the dance floor. Jumping to 1984, let's have a look at Tiles. Absolutely exquisite work. Everything about this sequence is perfectly arranged and designed in my opinion. The music first and foremost is unmistakably 80s, those sounds echoing stuff that bands like the Pet Shop Boys would go on to do later on. The animation of the grid, the tiles, and all of the colours blending to form the 4, it's definitely seeing the channel take a big inspiration from MTV over in the US, whose idents often were comprised of animation, with rousing music to back them up. Some would call this cheesy, over the top, but that is exactly what I adore about 80s pop culture when looking back. The fact that the music could be so bombastic, that the visuals could be so bright and colourful, and that idents didn't necessarily always have to be a revolving globe. For me, it's my favourite of these throwbacks so far. But saying that, we're about to move on to our penultimate sequence of the day. So with 2 to go, let's see if Channel 4 can win me over with a complete set. From the Christmas season of 1985, here is Shards. I find this one very interesting. What I like about it is its mystery, and how its story is sort of left up to your own interpretation. We see the Channel 4 logo emerge from a fiery crater, before being impaled by a bunch of spiky shards. When we see the full shot, we can see another planet in the distance. To me it looks like the moon, but it could easily be the Earth. My interpretation is that we're on a distant planet somewhere, and this 4 has been waiting to emerge from the planet's depth to break into the galaxy, only to be stopped by the very planet in which it resided within. I know that sounds like complete nonsense, but it's actually why I love ident sequences like this. They invite you to think, they invite you to imagine and think outside the box. If I had seen this as a kid growing up in the 80s, I would have absolutely been all over it and devising whole stories around it. The musical score for it is also excellent, giving it a grand, almost movie-like feel to the whole thing. Overall, another fabulously designed ident to add to this lineup of throwbacks. But sadly, we now come to our very last sequence of the day. Skipping forward to the summer season, here is Swimming Pool. Now that is some gorgeous animation. Yet another example of Channel 4 willing to be different from the competition of the day. Seeing this man dive into a pool, which is actually a blue piece of the 4 logo, is simple yet genius. The final image of the full logo, with the other elements added in, is a beautiful art piece. This is definitely one of those that wouldn't go amiss on a living room wall somewhere. It also shows how talented the animators were who worked on these things, spending so much time to make these animations both appealing and memorable, even though they would only be seen for a matter of seconds before the start of the program. I think out of all of the throwbacks, this one looks the most stunning now that we can see it in glorious HD. The art style, the blending of colours, even the synthesized voice that says, "We love sun, summer on 4, is nostalgically charming, and it serves as a fitting testament to Channel 4's willingness to be different back in the 1980s. A view that they may not strive to as much now with their idents, but an attitude that they are certainly not ashamed of. Overall, the idents chosen to represent Channel 4 in the 1980s were superbly picked, restored, and presented to us sitting down to watch It's a Sin in 2021. And whilst I've waxed lyrical about how wonderful these sequences are to see today, it's the little details that really make them special to those who admire and adore them. The fact that all of them were presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio, the fact the original music was left intact, the restored picture quality allowing us to appreciate these works of art for what they truly are. And I want to take some time to give a special shout out to 4Inclusion, the channel's new inclusion and diversity team. They first made me aware of these beautiful sequences via their Twitter account, and I highly encourage you go and give them a follow for further news and updates on Channel 4 and the media industry as a whole. One of the many things It's a Sin does is celebrate the diversity of its cast and of the LGBT community as a whole, and I'm happy that 4Inclusion is now here to champion that attitude of being different and for accepting others for who they are. I'm so glad that Channel 4 isn't afraid to dig out its past glories and re-air them, even if it's just for one day, just for the chance that audiences old and new will get to see and fall in love with them either all over again or for the very first time. And if anything, they're a testament and a tribute to the brilliance and innovativeness of the original Channel 4 ident designer, Martyn lambie-nairn, who sadly passed away on Christmas Day of 2020. Martyn's work for TV spanned for over 40 years. Aside from designing the iconic and impactful look of Channel 4, he also took the reins of BBC 2 in the early 1990s, coming up with the familiar 2 shape and many of the memorable variations that would emerge that decade. To learn more about Martyn's work and his process in approaching it, I highly recommend his 1997 book, Brand Identity for Television, with knobs on. Even though it was published nearly 25 years ago, it serves as an absolute bible to both Martyn's work and what is now his legacy. In tribute, I dedicate this episode to Martyn. May he rest peacefully, and may his incredible work and impact on the world of media and graphic design never be forgotten. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Ident Review. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a like, let me know your thoughts on these throwbacks in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel, as we've got a whole bunch of ident related content that you can enjoy. I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV, and I'll see you next time.